All right, thank you very much for keeping it here at Morning at NTV. We are emboldened by your company every morning. If you're just joining us, we are at the Kickstarter segment, and we are discussing the events that are going on, especially at the beginning of the year. We have the Conference of Speakers and Presiding Officers of the Commonwealth that is opening tomorrow. We shall also be having later this month the Non-Aligned Movement Summit, and later after that there will be the G77 plus China Summit. Those particular two, after the Speakers Conference, will see Uganda take on the position of chair, and that has been touted as one of the developments that shall have to give the country leverage, especially on the international stage. We shall be understanding exactly what that means. But first, to the Conference of Speakers and Presiding Officers of the Commonwealth. You must have seen in the news the Speaker of Parliament, Right Honourable Anita Among, and her Deputy Thomas Taeba welcoming guests, their counterparts from across Africa and the Commonwealth. Speakers from countries within the East African region have also been invited, even when those countries are not part of the Commonwealth. That is because there's a lot that has to go on with regard to the workings of legislation and inter-governmental coordination. I'm joined by Gerard Siranda. He's a member of the East African Legislative Assembly representing Uganda. Many thanks for joining us. Good morning.
Good morning, and thank you so much for having me once again. I want to wish you Happy New Year. I wish the Democrats and Ugandans out there Happy New Year. You've forgotten to tell them that I'm the Secretary General of the Democratic Party.
Of the Democratic
because that's
Party.
a ticket that takes me to become a member of Parliament, representing our great nation to the East African Legislative Assembly. In the same vein, I want to appreciate the Lord Almighty that He enabled us to cross over, and those that have issues, we continue praying to the Lord Almighty that the crossover. I had the bad news of my friend Pastor Bujingo, and what is happening, I know that God is in control. In the same vein, I want to appreciate the Right Honourable Speaker Anita Among and the Deputy Speaker Thomas Taeba that have been very busy all through within these days when people are in crossover in terms of preparing for the meeting that we are hosting. This is a very important meeting, a precursor meeting that is coming 2 days before we host the NAM and all those. And this meeting is very important that it brings together the presiding officers that presides over a lot of the initiative that go on in terms of the House, in terms of the proceeding, in terms of the laws. And this meeting in Uganda, for the first time, we've even invited members that are not from the Commonwealth. For instance, the Parliament of Burundi, both the Senate and the National Assembly, South Sudan, for the good spirit that we continue working together and as a region. And for us as the East African community, we commend the Speaker of the Parliament of Uganda and Uganda for accepting to do the integration within, because for us it is very pivotal, it's very central that the speakers understand exactly what we want to see in terms of growing the community as a regional bloc. World over now, regions are speaking in terms of blocks, in terms of the numbers they bring and all those. And this meeting is very unique, that is addressing issues of climate change, addressing issues of environment. It's also addressing issues of cross-generation and young people. And along the way, speakers will have an opportunity to go to, for the first time, to go to Namugongo to tour the shrine, but also plant a forest. And these forests will be, every event that will be in Uganda, they will continue going to plant that forest, and then they will go around within Makerere, and they are using kira motors as a way of mitigating the pollution and all. So for me, this is a good meeting for Uganda. It is testing our capacity on whether we will be in position to host the other coming meeting, and Uganda as a centerpiece within this community. So we wish the Right Honourable Speaker Anita Among and all Ugandans and His Excellency President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni and all the presiding officers have enjoy the stay within the Power of Africa, and then we take the key resolutions that where this meeting is coming at a time where the world is engulfed within conflict, you know, within wars and all those, even within this same region. And I think these meetings, I trust that Uganda is a trusted country, and it has been there in terms of foreseeing issues of peaceful resolution within the region. It is set itself as a giver and promoter of peace within the region. And I think for me it is important. We may have a lot of negativity within our country, but the people out there where we move, they have a lot of respect and believe that when Uganda is into something, they believe that it will get achieved. So I thought it was important to say a few of those things, and then ask Ugandans. We are using all our artists and all our people that are within the country to feel that for the first time, under the leadership of the Right Honorable Anita Among, many local leaders being Uganda, building Uganda, local artists, the Ndere centers, and all those have been involved in a process of preparing and organizing this CS COP 2027.
Okay, thank you very much for that preamble. My apologies, I am grappling with a little bit of ill health, and that has profoundly affected the ability of my voice to stay top notch. However, that notwithstanding, I would just love to understand from the point of view of the Secretariat and the deliberations in Arusha, as this speakers conference and the presiding officers meeting gets underway, what is the thrust that you bring to it?
No, as a region, and I think it's also to notify you that the Right Honorable Speaker, Joseph Ntakiruti Mana, the Speaker of the East African Legislative Assembly, he is one of the guests that are invited into this meeting. That's a clear sign that EAC is a mixture of Commonwealth, but we also have, we are now a regional bloc, and you cannot do anything within this region without thinking about what the regional bloc is thinking. I know we have been ushering in Somalia as a new member. They have deposited all the instruments, and we think by maybe June, they will also be having members of parliament. The Secretariat has been in DRC in terms of election observation and trying to help DRC to make sure that they implement the other pillars of the integration. We are working around the question of e-passport, because the question of mobility and movement is very pivotal and is very
within the region.
Within the region, we can no longer have a region where you want to go DRC, you need a visa. You need to go to Rwanda, you need a visa. You need to go to South Sudan, you need a visa. So we're working within the parameters of a pillar of having the free movement of people, free movement of labor, services, so that we have a one country. We now have that the notion of having the currency, because the currency is center. This is the fastest growing bloc within Africa, and it's a unique bloc. The bloc that has parliament, the bloc that has the executive, the bloc that has the Secretariat, but also the bloc with the summit. This is the only regional bloc that does laws within this region. We have a fully fledged parliament that legislates, that does oversight, and that passes laws. The other blocks are advisory. You know, you have members from national parliament that come together and they're doing a bit of the advisory role. And of course,
is the African Parliament one of them?
The Pan-African Parliament, they come in together and just do an advisory in terms of where they want. But this parliament has a clear role in terms of budget appropriation, in terms of making laws, in terms of oversight. That's why the East African community has been in position to be the fastest growing bloc within the region, and is working more of a centerpiece and example of what we're doing. For now, we know that you can move freely from Uganda, Rwanda, and Kenya. We have a few hiccups within Tanzania, but that's also going to be addressed. And of course, you know, South Sudan just also came in, but there are a few things that are also being worked on.
That's right.
Right now, within the e-passport, all the 5, you have Rwanda, Uganda, Kenya, Tanzania, and Burundi within the same e-passport. We are supporting South Sudan to make sure that they have the instrument and parameter and the human resource to do that. And of course, DRC just came in, and after 2 years, they've been able to preparation for elections. And of course, we talk about the common market, we talk about the tariffs barriers, we're talking about the reduced number in terms of cargo, electronic cargo e-tracking within the region. Why am I insisting on those? Is that those are the things that bring that people feel the community. It's not about the laws that you make, but when a person is in a position to move their cargo within 3 weeks, which used to take 60 days, or which used to take 3 months or 6 months, then the people feel the question of the community. And of course, we, as a region affairs, because I'm the chairman of the region affairs and conflict resolution, is to ensure that our region has peace, our region is freely being accessed by every community and in terms of our local people. So the pacification of the Eastern DRC is a key centerpiece that the Secretariat and the EAC is working around. Towards November, in the last summit, we know that DRC requested to withdraw the East African Standby Force, and they opted for SADC for reasons, maybe we think because they were going for an election and they needed neutrality because they have a few issues with Rwanda. But we believe that those are also going to be worked on. The fact that DRC opted to keep within the EAC region, we believe that is a centerpiece that we can work on the pacification of that region. We know that some part of Uganda has been hit by the rebels that come from the other side and eat here and all move. But by and large, the coming in of DRC, it gives us a leverage in terms of working together with DRC to build the peace in that region, so that our people can freely enjoy the common market within, that our people can freely do the trade, our people can freely do the investment within to build its region. DRC comes in with over 100 million people, and that is a bigger market we cannot just take for granted. And of course, we now have Somalia this side. We have Djibouti that has applied to join the EAC. You have Ethiopia that has applied to join the EAC. So that clearly shows you that there is a lot of interest in people that want to join the EAC. And you know that earlier, Sudan had earlier applied to join the EAC, but the application was rejected then because there was no border point that joined us. But now that we have Sudan, I mean South Sudan, it is important that we pay attention to what is happening from within Sudan, because it has a direct implication within the EAC. So I think as we prepare to host the NAM and all these initiatives that are within, Uganda is a central pillar for all these initiatives.
That is well understood, Honorable. But you spoke about, I heard in your statement, when one word that we should be able to magnify and be able to look through it, the hiccups within the region. There are two fronts, the economic and the political front. On the economic front, there are fears that the pace of expansion is too fast to accommodate the developments that are required to creating a regional bloc that can work as efficiently as those who foresee these kind of developments want it to work. I don't know whether that pace must be thought about, because at one point it's a bit contradictory when you're thinking East African community, but then between countries there are still issues and tensions, especially with regard to trade, tariffs, and which appears to be protectionism from one end, especially Kenya in dealing with Uganda. And then on the political front, when you hear presidents like Tshisekedi speak in the tone with which they do against other leaders, the very notion of political federation and creating a peaceful environment becomes a bit, it suffers a knock before it gets the kind of momentum that it requires for us to deliver on this particular dream and goal. Do you think there should be a rethink in assimilation of other countries, because quite frankly speaking, the pace is a little bit fast. We are already thinking about bringing on board Sudan, Djibouti, Ethiopia, yet we still have contradictions within countries that are the original members of the community.
I think for me, when you speak about the original members, you're speaking about the three. You're speaking about Uganda, Kenya,
Tanzania, yeah.
But
we haven't settled so much.
Yeah. I think by and large, these countries that have been in position showed each other within the areas of where we want to go. But we also want to appreciate the fact that the world is looking at you as what do you have, what block do you have, and it's within the EAC. We say we want to widen, and deepen the integration. So we are doing the widening, but what you should also ask that how much are we deepening? I think for me that should be the question.
Yeah, because
that it is key that we deepen what we have. It is key that maybe before we go outside in terms of bringing other member, we first deepen the DRC to appreciate that this is what they expect within the EAC. They enter the EAC. We must help them to make sure they fulfill a lot of the other requirements that were there. For instance, the question of free movement, it's been just on a bilateral between Kenya and then Uganda, but I think we must work around it so that it becomes an EAC. The question of charging work permits, those are things that I think we need to continue working around, so that before we feel the widening, there should be deepening of what we have. We
and
now
confidence
have Somalia
in the process.
And a new member. We are grappling with the issue of the language in terms of amending the EAC treaty for the establishment of the EAC, which used to say it is English. I mean, the summit has instructed that we should do provisions for Kiswahili, but also to do interpretation so that people feel each other. Because when people cannot communicate, then it is a problem. But do we just zone it and say, okay, because we cannot speak? I think it's important that once a person is within, then you draw modalities on how do they sit in to feel part of the processes. But I know that when you speak about issues of peace and conflict resolution, they are ongoing. It is very easy if DRC is in to engage with them, between DRC, between Rwanda, and between a lot of issues. It will be very difficult for you to engage them if they're not part of these processes. The good thing now, they are part of the secretariat, they are part of the assembly. We keep engaging with members of within the, so it de-escalates the tensions of what we want to get. But the bigger thing at once is the bigger picture. What does DRC bring to this region? We believe that DRC brings a lot to this region in terms of potential they have in that region, most especially for this country, Uganda, but also DRC. There are people that we may call them stateless. They are not. They are looked at as not Rwandans. They are also not looked at as Congolese. But so if we have the integration and it's deepened, it will address a lot of those issues in terms of where do you fall. Because at the end of the day, you carry an East African passport. You become an East African fast. The tensions we used to work with when you used to go to Tanzania, when you used to go to Burundi, when you used to go to Rwanda, the tensions are not there anymore because you are more looked at first as an East African. There are countries like Rwanda, they have opened up free for every African. If you want to move, you just move. Kenya has just said by the end of this year or this month, they will have opened up all space. But I agree with you, because these are questions that people keep asking. You are within the region. Are we not opening up too much? I think it's a question that why don't we also view what we had agreed? For instance, how far are we with the common market? How far are we with the issues of custom union? How far are we with the monetary currency? Because the biggest thing that is affecting us also within this region is the issue of the money. You go to Rwanda, change the currency. Go to Bujumbura, change it. Go to Juba, change it. Go to Nairobi, change it. Go to Kampala. If you're a businessman and you are the million, by the time you return, it's not million anymore. So we would maybe work around the question so that we at a level like the EU, you have your euro, you know, as a uniform currency, but you can remain with your pound.
You can remain with your pounds.
And at the end of the day, which you can use within. So I think for us, those are key parameters. And of course, there are pillars of sharing the security concerns, so that at the end of the day, right now as we speak, our security chiefs are sharing training, they are sharing information.
That's right.
That helps us to tame the region in terms of, for instance, we are dealing with the issues of small arms, we are dealing with issues of armed combatants. So those help us within the region to share expertise and experiences and information on dealing with the question of terrorism within this region, which has become a key pillar. So as a region, when you have challenges in the other side of DRC, you have challenges the other side of Somalia, you have challenges the other side of South Sudan, and as a region, as a landlocked, what do you do? The solution is to look at them as brotherhood, so that you solve these issues together at the end of the day. But we agree, we also as Parliament, we think we now have to face the summit and assess the question of deepening what we have.
Yeah, one other thing that we should tackle on that aspect before we transition onto the mainstream NAM and the G77 is the fact that Tanzania has some pain points when it comes to the pace and the modalities of integration. You've spoken to legislators from Tanzania and you know the tone with which they speak. What is the problem?
No, I think the problem will be the big brotherhood within the region. Is kind of big brotherhood, and without fear of favor or contradiction. If Tanzania bans something from Kenya, or Kenya does the same, the following morning Tanzania will do the same. Those
retaliatory
and Kenya
policy
will respond.
Yeah.
In Uganda, that's why we looked at as a pillar. The most especially President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni looks at, says a bigger picture. We had a minister, the late Kirunda Kivejinja. He used to be called bigger picture. That's not Right Honorable Kadaga now. She will fight the way that things of Uganda are put at at the forefront. Or if there is a share for Uganda and the staff is for Uganda, you will see Right Honorable Kadaga there say, this is what we need to get. So every leader has got the way they view the things. So it is about mutual way of understanding and how do we work together. So and if all our ministries, and for us we've done the laws, we've done our roles, the president, the summit has done their, is now the interministerial to make sure that the Ministry of Trade is very stronger on key aspects within, because some of these things do not come even to Parliament. It's about a minister who wakes up and say we'll stop this. So our ministries, I want to call upon all ministries within the region, because there's the sector council, interministerial council that now have to do this role. If it's on matter of trade, the minister has to do it. The Ministry for East African Community Affairs is just a coordinator. But each ministry is charged and they sit on the sector council. If, for instance, we're dealing with a particular matter of maize which has been coming in, and then you hear one president says, we shall sell our milk and then we get the cheaper one from Uganda. It's a contradiction. And then somebody says Uganda milk is not good for our consumption, but their leader is saying they will sell theirs and then consume ours which is cheaper. So it is about how do we be proactive and how do we make sure we stand with our people, so that we also put a face which says we are here as equals.
All right, thank you very much on that. Now let's transition mainstream into the Non-Aligned Movement Summit and the G77. The NAM, as the acronym goes, has been widely touted as one that will put Uganda where the country has so much work to be with regard to the workings of the international community. By taking up the chairmanship of the NAM after this particular conference, it will give Uganda the kind of leverage that any country would want, especially when you consider the diplomatic and international relations end game and how everything is played. But the NAM's background, or where it was born, was in a world where countries were seen not to want to be seen. It to be either on one side or the other, especially with regard to the battles, economic and political, between Russia and the West. Right now, those tensions have eased and there is literally very little demarcation into what is what. And if you're seen to be on this side, then it seems you're not putting your cards right on the table. Does the NAM summit itself offer us as a country a new opportunity to realign our card game?
Yeah, I think for me, the NAM, basically even starting with the CS COP that is here, is a test. You know, we've been, our parliament and our nation has been either maligned wrongly by passing some of the laws that, you know, and remember, parliament...
Call it self-sabotage.
I may not call it like, because...
It's not maligning. No one is maligning Uganda when it is the Legislative Assembly here that is passing a law that is controversial.
You get a journalist out there who thinks that when you land from Uganda, you're already murdered. It's not, because people have only taken one-sided. You know, recently we had things moving here on our airport. It wasn't even Ugandan airport, but the spent force of Ugandans, they started moving that, and they would say JK, which is not a Ugandan airport, and because people have hatred, that they even hate their own country, and some of this malice that moves against the country is people, if you ask, have you even read anything like that? I confronted one in Netherlands. They have never had an opportunity, because the picture they had painted is the moment you land in Entebbe, you're on spears, you're arrested and taken off.
But that has happened to Robert Chagulanyi. It has happened to...
the Robert Chagulanyi thing, we don't...
So if somebody out there believes something like that, and then it happens to a prominent person like that one...
How many times has Robert Chagulanyi been flying in and out of the country?
Should people be counting the times when they see a prominent incident?
We deal with the case by case. There are several things. Do you know how many people are shot on American streets every day? How many? Who is discussing them? You know, so for me, I think we want to look at what does this country offer in terms of, this country has been there you know, in all aspects that are tough times. Uganda has been there. Who credits Uganda? Somalia, Uganda is there. People are dying, men and women. South Sudan, everywhere we need the question of sustainability of peace. When we had the Iraqis that wanted, they had nowhere to land, the country they had to think about landing was Uganda. So for me, I think they trust that Uganda can host now the Speakers Forum. Immediately after the Speakers Forum, we are hosting the NAM. For me, is a sign that there is still a bit of trust that Uganda can hold on the things they have done well and reposition, so that we don't only spend a lot of our energy and a lot of our efforts. But for me, it is a game changer. And it's upon Uganda, what do we use? What do we use this opportunity that we are now hosting these events, but we are also going to chair this event? How do we work with him? Because the situation has changed, like you said. Nowadays, like, you can eat with two hands. You can eat with this hand, you can eat with this hand. At the end of the day, it depends on the circumstance on where are you eating.
And the piece you're picking.
And what piece are you picking? You know? And of course, you know, there are challenges of where, you know, that now World Bank is cancelling this. And so for me, you saw the UN base was moving away from Uganda, going to Kenya, and several other initiatives. So when we host a meeting like this, it is a way of repositioning the country, that we still have grip over these issues, we still have interest of these issues, and when we are in the chair for the particular period of time, how do we work within for us to swing the country in terms of the position we want and the direction we want? What has been our strength in this area is the issue of being a peacemaker within the region. How do we build within those, so that at the end of the day we do a repositioning and start a discussion on whether this non-aligned movement is still either by name, or we can redefine and get certain
find a new name for it,
maybe find a name, but also get the objective on whether it still works. It is and I know that President Museveni, you may hate him on a lot of aspects, but when it comes to that line, in terms of, you know, he will be there. And you saw when all leaders during COVID-19, is the man you needed to look at the end of the day. When we had the issues of the HIV/AIDS, you know, he put his weight behind when he believes in something. So for me, these conferences, one, it is rebuilding confidence that people still trust Uganda to host this, and along the way we'll also be doing the Pan-African. There are a bit of issues, but we'll also be hosting. Then, so the hosting of these events, but also taking leadership of this event, for me, it puts Uganda in a position to redefine what we want to do and offer leadership. Because for me, this is about offering leadership when the world is grappling between the question of war and where do you go. Are you with China? Are you with Russia? Are you still with America? For me, those are very central piece, and maybe we use them to also renegotiate the question of these loans within the, you gain capacity and confidence to re-engage even the World Banks of today. In
Honorable Gerard Sranda, let's go for a short break, but when we return we shall of course wind up with the question of defining exactly what Uganda needs from the world, especially as it takes on the chairmanship over the NAM and the G77 plus China. Stay with us, we'll be right back. We're glad you're still with us here on Morning at 10 TV. We are discussing what are the likely major issues that should emerge as Uganda prepares to host a host of presidents, speakers, and so many other delegates as the NAM and the G77 plus summit that is later this month. But in studio we have Honorable Gerard Sranda. He's a Member of Parliament, Member of the East African Parliament, and Secretary General of the Democratic Party. And we've been having a discussion on a range of issues and what exactly East African region ought to do in order to stand out and of course drive the agenda of the countries that are within the territory outside the world. But of course the discussion is more about how you present yourself to the world and very little about some of the challenges that you could be grappling with. Those apparently can be addressed at any one time. Honorable, with regard to how Uganda and inevitably the East African region can define itself to the world, President Yoweri Museveni has often spoken about the need for strength in numbers when it comes to trade. That you cannot, for example, say you want to offer the European Union a particular trade pact as Uganda. You don't have the numbers, you don't have the capacity, you don't have the strength. But as East Africa, if you come together, Kenya, Tanzania, and these other countries, then the European Union will begin to listen. But we know that within the workings of the international trade system, sometimes it's not about the numbers, but the stature. There are some countries, when they speak, everyone listens. There are others, whether you come up and you're 12, you still have to struggle to make your way through the corridors to lobby for attention. When you look at the fact that Uganda will be taking up the chair of NAM and G77, an outsider who is not initiated into the workings of the end games in politics, geopolitics, and the economics of the world might not understand exactly what is in it for Uganda. If we are the leader, the chair, is it going to help redefine our foreign policy? Is it going to help reshape our trade bargaining chip? What is it going to do exactly when somebody says NAM is here and this is what we're going to gain?
Yeah, I think I want people to know that we can no longer move within the world and say you're Uganda. Fine, you are. But there are people who even don't care. You just said it. Where is this Uganda? Where is it found? And I mean, the only thing they talk about is Amin. Now we have the gay thing, and you now have AGOA moving away. I have talked about many things that for me, first as a person, I believe that this meeting is timely for Uganda to reposition itself, for people to know that this nation continues to exist. And when you are a chair of this meeting, even if they don't want to know, even if it's for rubber stamping purposes, at the end of the day, they must find a way of what is the chair saying. And you have an opportunity to align. Even many of the small nations you think are many, at the end of the day, they will be aligned because there is something that they want to speak as a voice. So for me, this is a timely, important meeting for us. First of all, hosting a meeting at a time where we almost either look at our policies, look at our people. Remember, members of parliament come from the community, and that's how we look like. Yes, that's exactly.
When you say that's how we look like,
that's a community.
We begin to deserve the leaders that we have.
The reflection is a community, and until certain people raise up and they don't think that politics is only for people that can only run around. So, politically speaking, strategically speaking, this is meeting and timely leadership of taking over is important for Uganda. First, we must redefine what we want. We are going to use this meeting, first of all, to rub shoulders with whoever thinks is bigger in this nation, because you're the chair at the end of the day. You know, at the time Kutesa was the chair, we got a bit of issues, but we were at a position.
We misused the chair.
We may have misused the chair, but also there are many things that came up. Remember when Rugunda was also chairman of the African, the UN Security Council. You know, the stature of a chairman is that you position the country, and before they know where the chairman comes from, there is a banner, a label of where you're coming from. So it's about what we need to do. And I know with the President Museveni, with the way the timings are now within this region, I think he's a timely leader. If you look at the region, some leaders are new within the region, some have just come, some are just going through elections, some, you know, and you saw how Ruto has used the COP20,
the climate summit,
climate summit in terms of repositioning Kenya, projecting what Kenya can do, and at the end of the day, he moved that meeting to Dubai. I think President Museveni, the way I know is strategic leadership.
He hasn't been very vocal. He hasn't been out here trying to do what Ruto did.
He hasn't, because President Museveni does not need the stories of what he has done. He's done those things before. President Ruto just took office. He was a deputy. President Museveni, when he says we are going to do this for you just feel that you even feel that the Somalia entry into EAC is basically President Museveni. He was not the chairman of the summit. They brought the depositing of instruments Uganda instead of going to South Sudan. You know. Just this month in December, it was brought to Entebbe instead of going where the chairman is. So what am I trying to say is that these meetings, first of all, we have to build a new coalition within. Building a coalition of who with us, and we must build around all the countries you think are smaller, because one by one it will make a bundle and will speak as a voice. We will use this position as chairman in terms of speaking to whoever bigger person is there in terms
so
of
you have no choice but to listen to us.
We have to, because we come with a voice. Even if you don't want to listen to me, there are other members that are within the movement that you may want to listen to. And remember, many of these countries also have other bilateral arrangements. So we must deconstruct and rebuild so that we use the time we are in the office to have a strategy. And the other thing we can do is to redefine the objective of this non-allied movement so that they meet the current times of today. Given that now there are other blocks now that are within, and they are offering a lot in terms of loans, in cheaper loans, but they come with a lot of conditions attached. So maybe we can redefine, use also in terms of the loans, the World Bank, the condition that they are giving. So the meeting is very important, and I want Uganda and all other we in politics, we in the religious institutions, and all those that are within the fourth estate to support this initiative, because for me it is coming at a time where the nation has been struggling to be recognized internationally, and we can now have that.
Thank you very much. We in the fourth estate are already doing this by amplifying the conversations and ensuring that Honorable Gerard Seranda does speak.
And I want to appreciate you and the NTV
Thank you very much for
this opportunity.
That will do it for this edition of Morning at NTV. We'll see you tomorrow. Have yourselves a lovely day.